Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Jedi and Sith, to another video. I'm the Grand Admiral of the free-to-play fleet, where our farms are never on time and we've never spent a dime. Today we're going to be going over the top 10 defensive and offensive teams. They are ordered, but in all honesty, these are just free-to-play teams and generally easily accessible, so there aren't going to be any GLs. And so as a ground base, no GLs, no epic confrontation, and I'm including Jedi Knight Luke in that. I'm excluding Malik because he's relatively easy compared to Jedi Knight Luke and GAC, and so Malik is included on this list in several instances. I'm not including any new marquee characters, with one exception, which you'll see later, and I will highlight on these teams and these marquee characters as we get to teams that they would fit into, and just kind of like give a side note, but they're not explicitly on this list, as well as characters who haven't really been accelerated farmed yet. So the Bad Batch, you won't be seeing Bad Batch on here, but they are a very high offensive team, and I'm just going to say that right now as we get into it. So we're gonna go first off in defense, and we've got the Night Sisters and the Mo Money Rebel Fighters. On this team, obviously, you can substitute in a Kyle Katarn, and I would suggest putting Kyle Katarn, Cara Dune, Rebel Scout, and POW. That team, they're going to have lots of turn meter, but this is another nice B-type, BC team that can hold some defensive banners, and you can use them on offense for like Grievous or Night Sisters if you've got them geared up enough. But they're a pretty decent defensive team, similar to Geos. Up next is the Night Sisters, who are just annoying, and if particularly in free-to-play Grand Arenas, if you don't have something to specifically counter them, you can often get stonewalled behind those Night Sisters, and because once you lose once to them, it's hard to keep up. Up next, we're going to go with the Geos in first order. Geos, staple defensive team, obviously easily countered by Treya or Jawas, but they still can be very annoying and can often snipe banners from you if you're not careful. That's why they're on this list. They're just very good, either defensive or even back wall teams, maybe hiding them behind a Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma's on the front wall, so they use their Treya or Jawas, and then they've got to deal with your Geos later on. First order, especially on the lower levels, if you don't have something to apply healing immunity on Kylo Ren Unmasked, forget about it. He's going to sit there and soak up damage for so long, and it's so annoying. And this team just is very annoying, very just can survive for a long period of time. Up next, we've got Jedi training Rey. I've got the Finn Bros and the Satchel Bros in there. Obviously, you can use the OG Finn and Poe as well. And this JTR is just kind of just a nice little team that might throw someone for a loop, particularly that BB-8 little bonus turn meter. It could oftentimes trip people up. I've been tripped up a couple times where I think that I'm going to be able to outrun them, but BB-8 does this little wiggle, give turn meter, removes turn meter from me, and then I'm not able to go first and then lose a bunch of banners. Shock Troopers, obviously you can substitute gas in there for Shock T and make it instantaneously a better defensive team. Shock T can take out Padme if you're careful and you time out the buff dispels and aerial advantage on Anakin, Padme, and then Kenobi, but it's a little uphill battle. Shock T can also handle Jedi Knight Revan and some other tough teams like Night Sisters, stuff like that. But on defense, they're very annoying. It can be tough to get through them because you don't want to really take Empire up against them. Or, and like the teams I just mentioned, it can be an uphill battle. They can snipe some banners from you, and they can just be a nasty surprise because of a lot of turn meter, a lot of speed, and some heavy damage output. Up next, we got Padme and Jedi Knight Revan. Let's start off with Jedi Knight Revan, who I put below Padme just because I feel like there's so many Jedi Knight Revan counters now. But the same holds true for Padme, so the two of them are right there. I would suggest on defense maybe getting a tank in there. Obviously, if you don't have Padme, but you got General Kenobi, throw him in the Jedi Knight Revan lineup. And if you've got C-3PO, but you don't have CLS, I'd put C-3PO with Padme because it makes that Empire counter a lot harder. But Barriss does pose a threat to like CLS counters to Padme because of the health recovery. You crit hit someone, she's gonna recover, and Rebels crit a lot. And so that's those two teams just can be just something to trick you, make you think a little harder because they're tough. They are tough, and when you've paired them with these other ones, you would need to definitely figure out which teams to use for what. Because, for example, if you use Empire as one of your main counters, you're gonna either use Empire for Galactic Republic, for Night Sisters, for Geos, for First Order. Then all of a sudden you're having to decide which one you want to use to counter what. And so Padme, Jedi Knight Revan, very nasty teams still to this day. And let's go to the last two. We've got General Grievous and CLS. I put CLS with, not CLS. I put C-3PO with CLS, but you could get away with a old Ben, or you could swap out R2-D2 from JTR. There are so many options to this team. It's very nasty, and I know, if I remember correctly, 3POC is not yet a accelerated character, but he's going to be here shortly, and so I included him on this list. And he also has some low star viability because if CLS is at relics, he's going to share those stats and copy them to everybody else, so he's going to be thick. And so that's why CLS is up there, and 3POC with them. Evidently don't need to do much more than that. They're gonna get out first, gonna stun someone, most likely take someone out with Chewbacca and 3PO, and then it's a tough match unless you have a team that can withstand that opening barrage and then control the situation and take over really fast. The last one, General Grievous, Nute Gunray. You could throw BB-8. I've been tripped up by BB-8 a couple times just because it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you kill someone, General Grievous is going to take a turn, and if he's at relic, he's going to wreck and steal a bunch of banners. So defensively, he is a nightmare still. Obviously, there are ways to get high banners. Mon Mothma. You can even use Empire and maybe potentially get a saber throw into General Grievous and delete him before you can go on to Merciless. But very tough team. Imperial Troopers can have a hard time just because of the fact that, well, he doesn't care that you're running a train. He's going to take a turn and then start a train of his own. Moving on to offense. Not going to turn this into two videos. It's just going to be one. First up, we've got the Jawas and Beskar and Mermando. Jawas require a little bit of gear, but they can take out your your Mo Money Mothma and your Geonosian teams. It can also take out Mandalorians with Maul, and so just a nice team, to little niche team. That's why they're at the bottom. I wouldn't recommend gearing them up if you're free to play, but if you do have them geared up, they're nasty. Beskar Mermando's next, and I have him personally with Mission and Zalabar, because Zalabar already is really, really high health and protection because of the bonuses from getting paired with Mission, and just because he's a thick tank to begin with. And then you pair him up with Queel and IG-11, who are just sharing their stats, and Zalabar is a nightmare to get through. Plus, it's a double taunt, and anytime he attacks, and he does get retribution, anytime he attacks, Mission will be called to assist, and Mission applies damage over times, which can benefit Beskar and Mermando to get that double hit, and also get more Whistling Birds because she assists whenever Zalabar attacks. And if you have retribution on Zalabar and he attacks out of turn, Mission will get called to assist, and IG-11 will get called to assist. And you can quickly get a lot of high damage output, which is just absolutely nasty. And obviously, Beskar Mermando, his Whistling Birds can sometimes be a little underwhelming, but he's pulled off quite a few big things for me in the past, and so I definitely think he's a good offensive team. Up next, we've got the Bounty Hunters and the Traya. Bounty Hunters, you can mix and match. You could throw Bosk Lead in there. You could swap out Boba and put in Bosk. The list goes on and on. You can just, it's a very mix and match team. I prefer this one just because the contract can get triggered really fast and then you obliterate someone. Obviously now with Fennec Shan, if you have Bosk lead or Dengar lead, you can pop contract within like a turn, and so that's definitely faster. And if you've got Fennec, obviously better choice there. But moving on from that, we've got the Treya, and the reason I have Sidious and Maul in there is because they both have AoEs, and Maul's actually does quite a bit of damage. And if you're using it against a Geonosian team and something goes wrong, and someone dies, Sidious is going to get turn meter, smack an AoE, cause attacks out of turn, which is going to drop their health, and then hopefully eventually Maul will be able to come in and basic kill someone, basic kill someone, basic kill someone, and at the same time Sidious is also gaining turn meter. And so it's just kind of like that second just in case. It's like a second just in case there, so that if your trio gets obliterated by Geos somehow, Sidious and Maul hopefully can then clean up the rest. Moving on, we've got Shock T again. I already went over their offensive viability, and CLS, same thing, offensive viability. Heavy damage, lots of turns for both these teams. You can really control this situation, and so we'll just move on from them because they're kind of one that could be offensive or defensive. Up next, we've got Jedi Knight Revan, who, again, was on the defensive staple team, can mark someone down, cleanse, lots of damage output. This team in particular is a more offensive one, but it can be used on defense, and I have seen it. And finally, on this one, we've got Empire with Mara Jade, and she's that one marquee that I mentioned where she's newer, she's brand new, but you can use her at 3 stars because if Vader's going to be fast, if you've modded him right, and also because if you're taking up against Rebels, he's going to gain a lot of extra speed. Thrawn is very easy to get high speed, so you can quickly, with Thrawn, pass a turn over to Mara Jade, get her to apply Tenacity down, which is going to give her turn meter. Then she can go smack the AoE, apply Stagger, get another turn, and use her basic, call Palpatine to assist, and because there's shocks everywhere, he's going to get a lot of turn meter. Throw a stun out there, trigger all the staggers, all the shocks, and then Vader can just follow up with a Force Thrust, Merciless, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Royal Guard is pretty nice now after the rework, and so he's in there as well. Might be able to land a nice stun or two. And so Empire, I'm excited to use them with Mara Jade. I think they're going to increase in viability. And finally, we've got Darth Revan and Imperial Troopers with Moff Gideon. Obviously, Moff Gideon's not required, but it makes it a lot easier, and low star viability with Moff Gideon as well. Darth Revan, going back, fear, high damage, they've been around for a while, and Imperial Troopers are number one in my opinion on offensive, because these teams below on offense, they can beat every single one of them, and on defense, they can beat every single offensive team. The only one they really can't is going to be Grievous, but if you've got high enough relics, guess what? They can withstand that and then regain all that protection. But they just can run over anyone. And as a non-journey team, they are so nasty and easily the best offensive team, in my opinion, below GLs. And even in some cases better on offense than some GLs. And finally, I'd like to just have a couple honorable mentions. We've got the Ewoks, decent beginning, early game defensive team, and Enfys Nest, obviously great for taking out those Ewoks on defense. You can throw her in Beskar Armor Mando, other scoundrel lineups, and just make people have an absolute headache because she is still annoying. Finn, you can pair him up with the Resistant Bros as well, the Satchel Bros, and they can pose very nicely. Obviously, if you are using JTR as well, you've probably got Vet Han, Vet Chewie, Scavray, and Poe, and you can just form another little defensive team and even potentially clean up offensive team. First Order, in Grand Arena, this team is not necessarily the best. Territory Wars is pretty nasty, but it may be a back wall defensive team or a cleanup team on offense. This is just a kind of a Mission Mash Rebel Team. Not much to say there. I'm just gonna quickly move on. And then Empire Team here. You could obviously do Krennic with Death Trooper as well. Maybe instead of TIE Pilot, do Death Trooper. That team can be nasty. I've just got Grand Moff Tarkin because if you've got Zeta, it's 30 speed, expose. Hopefully, Probe Droid can get in there, detonate someone, and so just kind of like back wall teams, low grade teams. Just maybe fill up the back wall, or if you need to clean up. And as always, I'd like to thank you for watching, and this has been the Grand Admiral and end transmission.